Okay, so this week I watched the first 55 episodes of Black Clover. Now, Black Clover is an interesting series to talk about. When it first came out, everyone made a whole bunch of videos about how it is a terrible series and it's a complete Naruto ripoff. And I think that year it actually won the worst manga award. And of course, Black Clover is far from the worst manga. But the reason I think it's actually kind of an interesting series to talk about is because when people say it's like a Naruto ripoff, it bears many superficial similarities with Naruto for sure. But it doesn't have the core of what made Naruto. And if you'll indulge like a simile here for a minute, I would say that if you think of like a genre or like a series of cliches and tropes as sort of a skeleton for a work, like the shonen formula as the skeleton, and then you have things like characters, plot, setting, motifs, themes, ideologies as the meat and skin and various organs of what would make up a work, then Black Clover is kind of just a skeleton. It doesn't really have anything that makes it truly unique or original or its own. It just follows the shonen formulas and tropes and cliches to the T without adding really anything to them or refining them. It's like it goes down a checklist and just tries to add in as much like shonen stuff as it can. And in a way, it's actually like fascinating because that's in a way Black Clover's identity. It's like a skeleton that's been painted over. Its lack of identity has almost become an identity. And you could view something that is just the shonen formula as, in a way, the purest shonen series. Everything else deviates in some way, or is a crappier version, or subverts it, or refines it, but Black Clover is just a shonen series. And I'm not going to say it's refreshing, but it's certainly an interesting prospect. And I can actually appreciate that Black Clover, at the very least, doesn't try to be more than it is or pretend it is more than it is. It doesn't even seem to have any interest in trying to be more. And I know that seemed really negative, but I will say that, like, the thing about Black Clover is it's like, if you like the shonen formula and cliches and tropes, I think you'd like Black Clover. And I do like those tropes and cliches. Now, granted, Black Clover is, I wouldn't call it great. I'm not even sure I would call it good, but I would call it enjoyable for what it is. And if you like those tropes as they are, with no other flavors added, you'd probably like Black Clover too. Anyway, after that, I watched Steins Gate Zero. Now, Steins Gate is one of my top 10 favorite anime of all time. And when they announced Steins Gate Zero, my immediate thoughts were, what? Why? And after watching this, my thoughts are basically, what? Why? See, the thing about Steins Gate Zero is that it takes place in one of the failed timelines that we knew existed because it had to in order for Steins Gate to have its true ending. But there never really seemed to be any reason to delve into this timeline. And so the reason anyone would have bothered to make this anime other than as just a cash grab confused me. And I feel like Steins Gate Zero was basically just like a random cash grab. Or at the very least, it definitely follows the trend of like recent science adventure anime that are just complete misfires. I will say, I actually thought the opening was strong enough. And I thought the ending was, the very ending, like the last 3 episodes, were pretty decent. But there's like a long, like the first several episodes, we have plot progression, for maybe like the first 7 episodes, something like that. But then there's this new character that gets introduced, and we just spend way too much time exploring her backstory and her amnesia, and we don't really need to, because she's ultimately not that important of a character. And then the series takes a break because it has to fill out its 23 episode runtime, where pretty much nothing fucking happens, and then all of a sudden everything starts happening just on the fly, which I think was what a point they were trying to convey. But as a viewer, just because you conveyed the point doesn't mean I have to enjoy it. And I still think that the periods of nothing happening to get to the point where things just spontaneously kick off is still relatively uninteresting. I would actually say, oh yeah, and there's another thing, where the only real reason you'd even want a Steins Gate Zero anime would be to see the timeline, like, leading right up to the final timeline, to the Steins Gate, and to see the timeline where, like, Daru makes the time machine. But the problem is, they do this fucking stupid-ass thing where they take past Okabe and they shove him into the fucking future. So you basically, the thing you would want to see, which is the fucking World War III kickoff, you don't see because they just time skip past it and then they time skip back before it. So the only point for this series to exist doesn't even get addressed. And now there is one character I do like that got introduced, but it's not like she saves the whole series, so who cares? Anyway, I've been Sacrobolic, your envoy of hope, and that's what I watched this week. See you next time. Bye-bye.